Okay, well, welcome again today for another session with Dennis Rivers and the Seven Challenges workbook. We're working today with session number 5, and we have a group of people here at the Venture Creation Cafe here at the Kuala Lumpur campus of the University of Technology, Malaysia. Would love to introduce you, first of all, to Dennis Rivers, who is our mentor here today for coming to us live from Northern California. Dennis, welcome.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, I'm excited to have you here today too. We have a smaller group today with us, but we're looking forward to going through this challenge number 5. I think because we have a new group here today, you might want to begin again by doing a little overview. But let's take it as it goes. Go ahead.
Okay, that sounds great. Well, the 7 challenges is a new way of approaching communication training, because in the old days, the teacher would give a lecture and you would have to take notes. And if you didn't write everything down, you were out of luck. Well, that has changed because the 7 challenges workbook is on the web at newconversations.net. So, and also there's lots of teaching material and research material on the web. So that means that you can relax and concentrate on participating. And if you want to take some notes, that's fine. But if you just want to focus on participating, that's great too. Learning new communication skills has 2 sides to it. One is learning some new ideas, but the other is putting the new ideas into practice in conversations. So we're going to do both of those things here today. We're going to explore some new ideas about communication, and we're going to try them out. And I'll be asking you, every 15 minutes or so, to try an exercise, an interactive exercise with me. The 7 challenges workbook began in the mid-90s when I was working on my MA in interpersonal communication. And as I was researching the field, I realized there were hundreds, perhaps even thousands of pieces of good advice about how to communicate better. And it gradually dawned on me that no one could have a conversation while they were juggling thousands of pieces of good advice in their mind about how to do it. So that set up a very interesting quest for me, and that is to identify, of all the good advice that's out there in the world from all sorts of different experts about how to communicate better, what are the most important ones? So the 7 challenges are my effort to shuffle the most important things to the top. The first one is to listen more responsively. That is, to, when somebody is talking, you let them know in very, very tiny little interruptions what you have understood of their problem or their position or what they're trying to get across, so that you can listen very carefully and very attentively, but not be very responsive. If you're talking to me and I just totally focus on what you're saying, you have no idea. You know that I'm listening, but you don't know whether or not I've understood you. So in order for the speaker to know that the listener has understood, the listener needs to give little, oh, so you were really upset about that. Tiny little responses that help the speaker know that the listener has gotten the message. That's number 1. Number 2 is, when you want to have an important conversation, you declare your intent and invite the consent of the other person. So this little duet of intent and consent, lots of people do this naturally, but sometimes people forget. So if I want to work on the budget with you, and I walk up to you in the hallway with a budget in my hand and say, you know, line 14 here, that's got to go up, or that's got to go down, or something. You really don't know whether I want to talk to you for 5 seconds or 5 minutes or 5 hours. So if I say, Abdul, I'd really like to talk to you for at least 5 minutes about changing this budget, then Abdul is going to be much better prepared to cooperate with me. You're letting the person know what's coming. Challenge number 3 is to express yourself more clearly. And there we explore what's called the 5 I messages. There's a kind of universal human story underneath all our communication. So I'll just give you an example of the 5 I messages. It's an example that we used yesterday. When I saw the baby sitting on the bus stop all alone, that's what I saw, I got very upset. That's how I felt. Then, because I was worried that the baby would was lost, or would get kidnapped, or was in danger, those were all of my interpretations. That's the head. So I wanted to take the baby to the customer center at the shopping mall so that the parents could find the baby, and the baby would be under someone's protection. So that was 4 is I wanted to do something. That's the hand saying wanting. And 5 is pointing to the good thing that's going to happen in the future. So expressing yourself more clearly and more completely can be including more of these 5 elements that are the kind of universal story of human experience. The eye, the heart, the head, the hand that asks, and the hand that points. The last 2, the hand that asks and the hand that points, those get a separate chapter in the book called Translating Your Complaints into Requests. And that is, when you have a complaint, rather than asking people to explain the past, like, why did you do that? Or how could you have done it that way? Instead of trying to explain the past, we try to arrange the future. And we do that with a special sort of request that says what I want and why I want it. What I want and the good thing that will happen. So in that example that I gave you, I said, well, I wanted to take the baby to the customer center so that the baby would be protected and the parents would be able to find the baby. And the baby wouldn't be in danger. So when you have a complaint, like it's too cold in the room, I could ask you, I could say, oh, could you please shut the windows because I'm shivering and I would feel so much more comfortable. So that's the 2 parts, the what I want and the good thing that would come from it. Now today we are going to be working on asking questions, and asking questions more creatively and more open-endedly. Many, many cultures around the world have a tradition of yes-no cultures. Did you like it? Yes or no? But the problem with yes-no cultures, yes-no questions, is that they don't actually bring us very much information. We may need a lot more information. So This is one of the simplest things that you can learn in changing your communication style, is instead of saying, did you like it? Or will you do it? You can say, what did you like about that movie? Or how ready are you to do this function? That will allow the other person to tell us much more about what's going on with them. Number 6, challenge 6 of the 7 Challenges workbook, is to express more appreciation. And this, it seems to be just the universal, a universal element in relationship building. Whether you're talking about business, whether you're talking about relating to your customers, relating to your team members, relating to your children, or relating to your spouse. Expressing more appreciation is like magic. And often, expressing appreciation will have those same 2 elements in it. You cook me a wonderful dinner, and I say, oh, thank you so much for that. You know, that's my favorite food. I just love that food. That is, I'm feeling good, and why am I feeling good? So in our next session, we'll be doing more appreciation exercises. And the last of the 7 challenges is to adopt the continuous learning attitude. If you think that you're a fixed person with a fixed amount of skill and talent, you'll be very fragile when you make a mistake, because the mistake is going to suggest that you're a failure or that you don't have as much talent as you thought. When you adopt the new attitude of continuous learning, every mistake is an opportunity to learn something new. Every mistake is an opportunity to get better, rather than every mistake being an evidence of how bad you are. So that's a really, because life includes so much trial and error, that's a really important attitude shift that will help you in all your relationships and to learn new communication skills. So there's a brief overview of the 7 challenges. And I think now I'd like to go around the room and invite people to introduce themselves and say, what's interesting to you about new communication skills?
Well, I guess I can begin with that, Dennis. I'm always interested in improving communication because, as I've said before, the Venture Creation Cafe is designed around providing some service and some improvement for entrepreneurship. And entrepreneurs, if anyone, needs to have powerful communication skills. They need to communicate their vision, they need to communicate to their team, to coordinate the efforts, and they need to really, most importantly, communicate and understand what their customers need and want. So that's my interest in expanding communication understanding, is to spread that to entrepreneurs.
Thank you. And your name is?
Hi, my name is Yusnida.
Yusnida.
Yep, you can call me Yus.
Thank you, Yus.
Okay, at the moment I'm actually handling complaints department. So yeah, it's very interesting. Yeah, I just want to be able to communicate well with our fans on Facebook. So I just want to find the best way to gain something from our customers and to give back. Yep.
Yus, you'll be happy to know, you know, in the United States we have something called Social Security, and it's a pension for almost everybody. It's like 3/4 of the older people in the United States have Social Security. And the Social Security Administration adopted the 7 Challenges workbook for training their customer service representatives. So there's a lot of information in the book, which is free and it's on the web, that you can use to reach out to the people who have a complaint.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you so much for introducing yourself.
Hello. Hello, Dennis. Hi.
Hello there.
My name is Hafiz.
Hafiz,
Yes.
a famous and beautiful name.
Okay, actually, I come from the company we use NIDA use.
Mm-hmm.
So we are handling the complaint through the Facebook, email. Also, the major problem is how to handle the customer.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, I think what we're covering today will be important to you, but I invite you to download the 7 Challenges workbook and read it, and participate in more of our trainings and explorations on this, so that you can practice these responses and reach out to the people who need help. Thank you. And tell me your, oh, Hafiz. I'm writing your name down. All right. Thank you, Hafiz.
Welcome.
So would you like to pass the microphone to Abdul, who's sitting next to you now? Thank you.
Hi, Dennis.
Well, Abdul, how do you feel now you've watched me giving these presentations, and what comes to your mind as we work our way through? See, that's an open-ended question. What comes to your mind as we work our way through these steps?
Well, each session just seems to open up another avenue for me to explore with what I do, especially when it comes to communication through multimedia and through online tech. And with the work that I do and what we're doing today with Advanced Facebook, it's to do with complaints, and it's to do with how do you communicate and how do you understand the needs of your customers and clients, and then how do you respond and communicate in the correct manner and avoid making the situation worse than what it was before. So each session of the workshop seems to answer a question in the same area, but in a different way, in a different scenario.
Well, thank you so much for participating. Abdul is very kind and generous. I frequently, when I need to do an online exercise, I just say, Abdul, help me out. I want you to play this role so that I can play the other role. Thank you very much, Abdul.
Thank you.
Well, I wish that we had, 5 hours today so I could go through the whole workbook with you, because every chapter has something to say about customer service. But today we're going to work on this idea of asking questions. We tend to think of communication as we're either expressing ourselves or we're listening. But that's not really a complete model. There's a big area in there called asking questions, and it's not exactly expressing yourself, and it's not exactly listening. It deserves its own category. So if I were going to rewrite all the textbooks on communication, instead of just saying 2 things, speaking or listening, I would say 3 things: speaking, listening, and asking questions. So you see, when I was talking with Abdul a minute ago, I could have asked Abdul a closed-ended question. I could have said, Abdul, do you like these workshops? But if I asked him that closed-ended question, he would have said either yes or no. I wouldn't have gotten very much information. So I asked Abdul an open-ended question. I said, what comes to mind when you think about these sessions that you've been sitting through. Now, in the 7 Challenges workbook, I give a whole list of open-ended questions, and they have a creative element in it. So it's almost like creative writing. It's not a technology of you say this or you say that. It's a much more creative imagination. For example, let's say I got a job offer in a faraway city, and I turn to my wife and I say, honey, do you want to move to Boston? You see, I'm forcing a yes-no answer where there might be a lot that I need to understand. She says yes or no. I don't know very much about what's going on. If I said, honey, how comfortable would you be with us moving to Boston so that I could take this new job? Then I would get a lot of information, you know. So the customer comes and makes a complaint about a piece of equipment, and you say, well, how comfortable would you be if we sent you a refurbished model of that printer that's not working? See, and that how comfortable allows for a lot of different responses. You could say an open-ended question is a promise to listen, and it's an implied promise to listen, because you're not trying to push someone into agreeing with you or disagreeing with you. You're not trying to, I'm not saying, why do you feel that way? Why are you dissatisfied? See there, I'm challenging you to defend yourself. But I could say, help me understand what's going on in this situation that's not satisfying to you. See, that's an open-ended question. How comfortable would you be with receiving a refurbished printer to replace this one? What comes to mind when you think about this proposal that I've just made to you to start a new company? Now, if you read my chapter, you'll see that I give about 10 examples on newconversations.net. So now, as Dan, our organizer here, has pointed out, this is not about just new ideas, but this is about practicing things. So now I would like us to do an exercise. So I'd like you to take a piece of paper and think about a situation in your life today. And I want you to write 2 versions. Well, I'll give you one more example. For years, when I go to the dentist, the person who's cleaning my teeth will say something like, Dennis, do you floss? And I usually, you know, the person is cleaning my teeth, so I got my mouth like this. And I go, uh-huh. See, that was a closed-ended question. That was a yes-no question. She didn't say, Dennis, how frequently do you floss your teeth? So if she had said, how frequently did you floss your teeth? I wouldn't have been able to say yes. I would have to say, oh, well, about once a week or not very often. So, so you can see there how a closed-ended question doesn't get the other person nearly as much information as they need. You know, like the doctor asking the patient, are you taking your medicine? Well, maybe the patient is taking their medicine once a week. So if they say yes, the doctor doesn't really know. A better way to do that would be, I think, well, okay, that'll be our exercise. That'll set you up. Each of you is a doctor. You go into the examining room to see your patient, and your patient is a diabetic. And the quick way to ask the question is, are you taking your medicine? But that's not a very good question. So I want you to come up with an open-ended question that would get more information about the patient and what they're doing with their medicine. So let's do that for about 5 minutes, and then we'll share our answers, or maybe 3 minutes. So the beginning one is, are you taking your medicine? So, and you're going to do you're going to translate that into an open-ended question that could allow for many answers, not just yes/no answers. Yes, Dan.
Dennis, did we have a section in the 7 Challenges workbook that we could bring up for this exercise?
Sure, we do. So it is, it's challenge 5. And if you go to the 7 challenges, if you go to the newconversations.net and scroll down the page to the 5th section, you'll see I have there a little cloud, a little conversation cloud with a door in it, because open-ended questions open the door to more information.
So I can go down to challenge
5, and you'll see the little cloud with the doorway in it. So have you found newconversations.net?
Okay, Dennis, we have it up now.
Yes, there's challenge 5.
I don't know why it's flashing at this end, but that's what I see. Anyway.
Well, that may be a bandwidth artifact. We may need a super, 100 megabit. You may have 100 megabit Ethernet inside your building, but that doesn't necessarily mean you have 100 megabit throughput to the internet.
No, for sure.
Well, I don't want to interrupt people. I don't want to interrupt people from doing the exercise. So let's shift back to me, and I will try organizing these images so that they're easier to pull up.
Okay, go ahead.
All right. Well, Abdul, what would you say to the patient? You're the doctor. You've walked into the examining room. There's your diabetes patient. You're concerned about the medicine. How would you ask that question?
I'd say, how regularly have you been taking your medication, and how are you finding it?
Mm-hmm. All right. And how about you, Hafiz?
How many times a week you taking medicine?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's good, because that leaves a wider range of answers. And use?
Have you taken your medicine after your meal today?
Yes. Now, the thing is, that can be answered with a yes
Yeah,
or a no.
yeah.
So it's not really an open-ended question. An open question might be something like, how easy is it for you to take your medicine every day? See, that would allow the person to say, yes, it's easy, or, well, maybe the person needs to confess that they're not doing a good job. So if they need to confess, you want to make it easy for them to confess. You don't want to make them embarrassed or ashamed. So the way you ask the question indicates, like if I said, have you been a good patient and taken your medicine every day this week? Well, you see, then if the person says no, they're going to be embarrassed and ashamed. Whereas the way I did it, how easy is it for you to take your medicine every day? Then the person might say, well, it is pretty easy. I put it in a little box and I take it every day. Or they might say, it's not so easy. And then that would open up a conversation for you to negotiate about what would change it. Now, how about you, Dan? What did you write down?
Well, I didn't write anything down, but I think more on the lines of, how often are you taking your medicines now since we last talked, or since we last met?
Okay, so I want to reassure all of you, this is an art and not a science. There isn't one right way to do this. There's 100 right ways to do it, and there's 1,000 wrong ways to do it. So it's a very creative process, with what you're comfortable with, the metaphors and stories. For example, I use this phrase, how easy is it for you to stay on schedule? Now, what I'd like to know from Yus and Hafiz is, how often do people say that to each other in Malaysian? How often do people ask questions like that? How easy is it for you to... Is that a rare question, or is that a common question?
This is a rare question.
A rare question, okay.
Because Malaysian people, they give a direct question.
Yes or no? Huh?
Yes.
Okay, now here is another. Don't put the microphone down. All right. How easy would it be for you? How easy would it be for you to adopt this question into your ordinary speech? Would it sound funny to people, or would it just sound interesting?
I think it's very easy to comply with at my organization, because the question looks like a very friendly, not too directly, and then it's not sometimes not looks like instruction. I think this is,
that's true.
So they are very easy to apply at my organization.
Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you so much. And Yus, would you pick up the microphone? So when you hear us discussing these open-ended questions, like how comfortable would you be doing this or that, or how easy is it for you to stay on schedule or something, I'm wondering, how easy would it be for you to adopt these kind of questions? Would they sound funny to the people in your family or in your workplace, or do they make sense in Malaysian? Because I've asked this questions in other language groups, and in some language groups, these questions don't make a lot of sense. And in other language groups, they make perfect sense. For example, in Spanish, everybody gets it. Spanish is so close to English, everybody gets it right away. Oh, yes, they can see how to do it. So I'm very interested in learning from you. Could you incorporate the how comfortable would you be? How easy would it be for you? Are those easy? How easy would it be to include that in Malay everyday conversation?
Okay, to me, it's depending on the crowd that I mix with. Probably I'll feel more comfortable talking like this to my close family and friends. But for those in my organization, in the office, probably I think it's a bit challenge for us because just to tell you a brief about my office here, because we have this crowd of people. We were actually Malay speaking office. We rarely speak in English in the office. Okay, we only use English in emails and Facebook only. So in Malay, we actually, if we want to say something to the other person, just say like that guy forgot to button his shirt or something. We don't say it like directly. We don't actually talk to the person. We will say it to someone else, and you're actually asking the other person to talk to that guy. It's something like, so it's I'm saying that it's going to be a very different situation. So I wouldn't say that it is easy to adopt that the way of communicating.
Okay, I really appreciate that feedback because, well, when you, if you have a new way of doing things, it can surprise people and make them uncomfortable. So as you, and in some cultures, asking questions is rude. You just don't walk up, like in Native American cultures. You just don't walk up and ask someone a question. You wait until they're ready to tell you what they want to tell you. So, so I think the way we could maybe adapt this is by using challenge 2. That is, instead of me just walking up to you and saying, well, Juice, how comfortable are you with this new product we want to sell? See, that would be kind of abrupt. But if I said, I want to have could we have a conversation where we explore this topic? And then you say, yes, let's have a conversation. That's the challenge 2, declaring your intent and inviting the consent. You kind of create a framework for having the conversation. So you might use challenge 2 in order to make challenge 5 work. So if you needed to ask someone an open-ended question and you needed to tell them more, you could very respectfully say, you know, well, could I talk with you for a few minutes about this topic? Then they would get ready. I have to tell you this experience. I know Abdul and Dan have heard this story many times, so I ask you to be patient. I love eating broccoli, and I was at my favorite market, and I went over to get the broccoli, and the broccoli was full of little bugs, so it was really awful. And I had already been teaching these communication skills, so I went over to the customer service representative, and I said, I would like your permission to make a complaint. And she said, all right. And then I said, the bugs are full of, the broccoli is full of bugs. And she said, we'll take care of it right away. You see how different that is, that introduction, declaring your intent and inviting consent. I said, I would like to make a complaint. And that allowed her to get ready. She could give her permission. She was kind of in control of the conversation. She just wasn't being pushed along by me. Because if I had just walked up to the counter and said, the broccoli is full of bugs, that would be very abrupt. And although she would probably take care of it, she wouldn't feel good about it. Whereas she felt fine receiving my complaint because I allowed her to get ready. I think of this also as like throwing a watermelon at somebody, a giant piece of fruit that weighs 15 pounds. If I'm going to throw you a watermelon, I have to say, hello over there, I'm going to toss you a watermelon. Are you ready to receive my watermelon? You say, okay. Then that's very different than if you're just standing there and I throw the watermelon at you. So all of the 7 challenges are connected with one another. They're interwoven. So quite often you'll use one of them to make the other one work. Let's see. So we have a person who's come in to the, with a person sitting in the back. Would you introduce yourself to the new participants today so we know, and we'll bring you into our discussion.
Hi Dennis, I am the same person as yesterday, Jamshed Memon, the PhD research student, actually attending this session again today just to observe and also to have kind of conversation.
All right. Well, today we're talking about open-ended questions. So I want to ask you an open-ended question. How comfortable are you joining in the conversation? Because we'd love to have you.
Yeah, I feel very good because I feel it's like real-life experience because at some point, whatever incidents you are examples you are quoting, we feel that we also face these problems or face the situation in everyday life. So how you handle those situations and how we should handle those situations, I think it's a common factor between both of us. So we can learn from your examples.
Yeah, I just asked you. Today's lesson is about an open-ended open-ended questions, and I just asked you an open-ended question.
Yeah.
So that also is, there's a lot of loops in human communication. You know, I want you to listen to how you listen.
Right.
I want you to ask questions about the quality of the questions that you're asking. So that is, human communication is pretty complex. And I've written down these 7 challenges because it's a way of getting organized. We asked, so Jamshed, if you will allow me, we did an exercise. So I want you to allow me to give you a pop quiz. So here's an exercise. Here's an exercise you're doing. You're a doctor and you have a patient with diabetes. And the patient's taking some medicine. And you want to know how the person is staying on their medicine. And the ordinary way that people would ask the question is, are you taking your medicine on schedule? Which only gets a yes-no answer, not necessarily the most truthful answer. So can you think of how would you translate that into a more open-ended question?
How do you take your medicines? Maybe they.
Yeah, how do you take your medicines?
Yeah.
Try it 2 or 3. There isn't just one open-ended question. There's an infinite number. So think about other ways, like
maybe what time you take your medicine, or different ones.
One of mine was, how easy is it for you to stay on schedule taking your medicine? And the reason I do that, the important point in asking these open-ended questions is, an open-ended question is a promise to listen, and you want to allow for the widest possible answers.
Right.
And I gave the example of, my dentists are always asking me if I floss my teeth. Dennis, do you floss your teeth? You know, doing that thing, dragging that string through your teeth. And I always say yes, but I don't floss very often. What the dentist ought to ask me is, Dennis, how often, how easy is it for you to floss every day? Oh, then I'd have to say, oh, it's not so easy. I have such a difficult time flossing every day. Sometimes I only floss once a week. So how comfortable is it for you? How easy is it for you? How do you feel about such and such? What comes up for you when I bring up the topic? So like, you know, you and I have a new product, and I decide I want to paint it green, and I say, well, what comes up for you when I propose that we paint our new product bright green? See, what comes up for you allows you to say, Dennis, I think that's the most awful idea I ever heard. Or you could say, wow, that's really great, and everything in between. So in terms of our goals about entrepreneuring, you really want to make space for that everything in between. You don't want to have your question prejudice the answer, because then you're not getting, even though I may hope that you like my suggestion for bright green, but I better not push you into liking it, because it might be very valuable information for me if you don't like it. That's something that I need to know. So I was saying before you came in, an open-ended question is a deep implied promise to listen to any answer.
Yeah, I totally agree with that, because as part of my research, I am also doing interviews, so those are based on the open-ended questions. So sometimes when I ask the questions and I don't get the right information which I'm looking for, then I ask another question, same question but in another way, so that I can get the information I'm looking for. So I think that's where we agree that open-ended questions should be like this, that where you get the information you are looking for, or you make people talk and explore the.
All right. Well, yes,
Dan,
please, Dan.
I just wanted to interject this whole notion of making this a promise to listen. I mean, if you make this request, you're really stating your intention about listening, and that's a very you know, you're trying to be responsive to the party you're talking to. There's an example that we used the other day from the Facebook from Paradigm Mall, where the person responded to their what was the question about the elevators are not working, can you help us out, or you should do something about that. The response was, we'll get somebody on it, with a smiley face. And the second time they put that on, they did the same thing. They said, well, we'll get somebody on that with a smiley face. And the people reading this response began to think and look on the responses as being disingenuous. Just, you know, there was no promise to listen. There was just a statement about, oh, we'll get to it. And I'm seeing how important that very statement is. The promise to listen is so important in communication. If you just say, oh, I'll get to it, you don't know if that's a real thing or just a way to put somebody off.
Yes, if I say, how did you like that movie? And then you say, well, actually, I didn't like the movie very well. And then I get mad at you and I say, but that was a great movie. You should have liked it. You don't know good movies from bad movies. Then you see, that's really breaking the promise. When I ask an open-ended question, it is suggesting that I'm ready to receive a wide range of answers. You know, you can't have no successful organization can run if everybody just runs around saying yes to everything, because they want to be nice, or they don't want to embarrass anybody, or they don't want to save face. So the learning to ask open-ended questions is part of this larger, overarching challenge in human communication, which is to be honest and respectful at the same time. So that is a very creative thing to do, and I think for many people, it will take several years to weave those two things together. That's not a small thing. It's not a quick trick. It's not, although you can learn to ask open-ended questions in like 10 minutes. But which one is the honest and gentle open-ended question? That may take years of practice. So my time frame of development is years rather than days for communication skill development. And I've tried to organize the material so that it's there and for people to use over a long period of time. And we're going to include new things from these video sessions.
Good. Thank you, Dennis. I'm keeping an eye on the time here a little bit. I know we have to cut this session a little bit short because it's an hour instead of the normal hour and a half. So if you
mentioned that, and I think we're ready to wrap it up. So what I'd like to do is just have one quick have the microphone go around the room and have everybody say how they enjoyed today's session or how they feel about today's session, and then we'll sign off.
Dennis, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Yeah, as always, it was a pleasure, and I learned a ton, and yeah, thank you very much. Enjoyed it.
Hello, Dennis. Hello.
Yes.
Thank you for sharing. And then this is a very interesting knowledge that I received for today. That's all. Thank you.
Hi. Thank
Yes,
you so
yes.
much for this session. So I guess I must learn how to how to actually ask in the way that you mentioned earlier, an open-ended question. So I have to learn that skill, yeah, more.
Well,
Anyway,
I hope that it produces good results for you.
Yep, hopefully. Thank you so much.
Yeah, hi Dennis. I would just like to say something. Like I have a comment because in the morning I was watching this Facebook video, and the lady was talking about the Malaysian standard of English. I mean the way Malaysian interpret what you say. I mean like what American or what British say. So this lady was giving an example of some British of some European girl. Working in a restaurant in Malaysia, and the manager asked him to do like to make a fruit juice. So what he said and how she interpreted, like the Malaysian manager, he said that you put the fruit in the into the juicer. After that, after you switch on. So her interpretation was that he have to turn on the machine and then put the fruit, because he did the manager didn't interpret like that. That's how like Malaysian standard English, that's how they speak. They speak like in a different way. So how he interpreted was that she turned on the machine and she put the fruit. So what happened that it was like all over the place. So then the manager shouted that I told you that you put the fruit into the machine after you turn on. He didn't say after that you turn on. So I want to know that like whatever communication skills, I mean maybe the people on this side or any other country, they interpret English in a different manner. I mean, because they are not native speakers of English, so they may be interpreting it in a different way. Might not be the American or the British standard or the any other country's standard, or maybe Australian.
I agree with you completely, and that's why we need to focus on principles, underlying principles of communication, because the underlying principle can be applied in any language. You can ask an open-ended question in any culture and in any language, but I'm sure it will sound different in each language. And the same thing about, I want this in order for that good thing to happen. We know those are the two elements that are involved, but which one will come first, that is going to vary. For example, you know, I gave the example yesterday with Abdul about the person running the lawnmower outside the window of the office when he was trying to have a meeting or a class. So one of the ways you could say that is, would you please do this cutting the lawn later so that the people in my class can hear me? But it turns out in that situation it would be more polite to say the second part first and say, it would help me so much. It would help me so much if you would cut the lawn earlier before our business opens. See, by saying it would help me so much, you right away you begin by being extra polite. So even though those two elements are going to be involved in translating a complaint into a request, there's lots of room for creative improvisation. Human communication is enormously improvisational. So let's talk more about this topic. I want to be in dialogue with you about this topic because I'm very interested in it. Thank you. There we are, Dan.
Okay, well, thank you again, Dennis. It was a real pleasure having you here again with us. If any of you are tuning in with us online, I hope you'll enjoy coming down to the Venture Creation Cafe and participating with us live sometimes. Just keep an eye on our Facebook and website for the schedules. And yes, thanks again. I hope we can continue this again early next week when we have our opening event.
Thank you. I want to thank all of you. It's a great honor to be a person's communication coach. So I so appreciate your opening up and sharing with me and participating in this session. And I wish you all a lot of wonderful new conversations.
Thank you, Dan.
Bye for now.
Bye-bye.